Khalwat, Dar and Juman, to be inwardly connected to God whilst outwardly engaged with people. Naqshbandiya Principle. Chapter 9. 9-month seclusion. Introduction. Hadrat Sahib spent most of his life in rural areas and occasionally visited shrines in the neighbouring towns and villages. Thus far, Hadrat Sahib's primary mode of transport was horseback, but from the 1960s he used a car or jeep for his travels. At different points in his life, Hadrat Sahib visited numerous shrines in Rawalpindi and Lahore. These were brief excursions, and he never stayed for long periods of time away from Chechen Sharif. However, all this changed in 1966 when Hadrat Sahib arrived in Rawalpindi. Perhaps this particular visit was now a means for Hadrat Sahib to practice Khalwat, Dar and Juman. This is one of the 11 principles of the Naqshbandiya path, in which a person socializes with people, yet never becomes heedless of God. For its followers, the spiritual path, of which the Naqshbandiya path is branch, is a joyful, deeply devoted, but often arduous path, yet with enormous rewards. Devotees of the Naqshbandiya path understand that part of the way to God entails being amongst people while simultaneously being inwardly present with God. Just as seclusion from people remains a crucial element of spiritual progression, solitude in the crowd is as necessary. When Shah Bahauddin Naqshband reached Herat on one of his journeys to Mecca, the ruler of the city, Amir Hussain, arranged a gathering in his honour. At the assembly, the Amir asked him, "Since with your presence there is neither audible dhikr nor audition of special music and poetry, what is your path?" He answered, "The pure words of the tribe of Abad al-Khalik Gujwani, which are retreat within the crowd, and we follow in their way." "What is a retreat within the crowd?" the Amir asked. "Outwardly to be with the people, while inwardly to be with God," said Shah Bahauddin. The Amir expressed his surprise and asked whether this was possible in practice. Shah Bahauddin replied that if it were not possible, God would not have indicated it in a Quranic verse, which describes those who are not distracted from the remembrance of God, even while in the marketplace. Men whom neither business nor profit distracts from the recollection of God. This is the way of the Naqshbandiya order. Ahmad Jan Mosque. In Rawalpindi, Hadrat Sahib met a Sangi, Firozuddin, and inquired if it was possible to find a place to stay for a few days. He offered his rented accommodation, but Hadrat Sahib declined the offer and stated he wanted to stay in a mosque. As previously mentioned, Hadrat Sahib never acted upon impulse, but on divine guidance. Numerous robberies had taken place at the mosques in Rawalpindi, but subsequently the mosques in the city were closed at night, so no one was permitted to stay overnight. Firozuddin mentioned that there was a small mosque near the bus station in the city centre where he regularly offered his prayers. Hadrat Sahib said, "Let's go there, God will provide." By the time they arrived at the mosque, Ahmad Jan, the custodian of the mosque, had gone home. However, Hadrat Sahib met the Imam and expressed his desire to stay in the mosque. The Imam informed him it would be difficult as Ahmad Jan did not allow anyone to remain in the mosque overnight. The following day, Firozuddin sought permission from Ahmad Jan, who inquired about Hadrat Sahib. Firozuddin replied, "He is our guest." Ahmad Jan retorted, "People keep guests in their houses, not in mosques." After lots of discussions, and upon the recommendation of the Imam, he finally permitted Hadrat Sahib to stay for a few days. Ahmad Jan's accommodation was adjacent to the mosque, and it is for this reason that he never let anyone stay upstairs in the mosque, as it was an invasion of his privacy. Ahmad Jan said, "I have one condition. My family lives next to the mosque and can be seen from the top floor. Therefore, do not go up there." Hadrat Sahib accepted his condition and never went to the top floor. During his stay, Muhammad Ashraf stayed with Hadrat Sahib to serve him. Hadrat Sahib's daily routine was to visit shrines on foot during the day and to rest in the mosque at night. When Hadrat Sahib prolonged his stay, Ahmad Jan became aggravated. If anyone inquired about Hadrat Sahib, he would say, "He is a traveller who goes out in the morning and sleeps in the corner of the mosque at night." Despite his initial misgivings, Ahmad Jan gradually began to like Hadrat Sahib's company. On one occasion, Hadrat Sahib did not return to the mosque for about 3 days, and Ahmad Jan became so worried that he sent his sons to search for him. When Hadrat Sahib returned, Ahmad Jan met him straight away and said, "People pray for the protection of faith. I prayed for the safety of our traveller, Hadrat Sahib." This incident is indicative of the potent effect that saints have on people whose hearts are hardened. As a result of his connection to God and our Prophet, Hadrat Sahib's noble demeanour was such that he softened Ahmad Jan's heart without the need for any conflict or arguments. Such was the nobility of Hadrat Sahib, which he inherited from Qibla Alam. Hadrat Sahib suffered from severe migraines, probably due to dehydration, and on one occasion Ahmad Jan saw him in great pain. He offered to bring some tea for him, but Hadrat Sahib refused, as he never wanted to burden anyone. In another incident, Hadrat Sahib had a kidney infection, and he felt that this would be the cause of his death. So he gave instructions to Faidal Karim, who had replaced Muhammad Ashraf, to take care of his funeral. When Ahmad Jan saw Hadrat Sahib in such pain, he suggested that he move upstairs. During Hadrat Sahib's stay, his mother came to visit him and was shocked to find him in the middle of the busy area in the city centre. She knew that Hadrat Sahib preferred solitude and hated noise. She remarked, "At home he does not even like the creaking of the door, but here he is sat in the middle of a congested traffic city. Is there no noise here?" It was a strange situation, because Hadrat Sahib was an incredibly private person and preferred to stay away from crowded city life. This further validates the fact that Hadrat Sahib was practicing solitude in the crowd, Khalwat, Dar and Juman, another integral requisite for saints on the spiritual path. The parable of the seed. A young soldier often prayed in the Ahmad Jan mosque and became familiar with Hadrat Sahib, so he invited him to his home for food. Hadrat Sahib declined his offer, and this upset the soldier, who angrily said, "If you do not accept my invitation, then why do you keep looking at me?" Hadrat Sahib calmly replied, "Before a farmer sows the seeds, he carefully observes the soil." What Hadrat Sahib meant was that although the soldier may be a good person, he cannot carry spiritual responsibilities. For a successful harvest, 3 things must be in place. Firstly, good seeds, then good soil, finally, a good farmer. If the right seed is planted in the barren ground, it will be wasted. Likewise, if a poor seed is sowed in fertile land, it will not produce any crops. Equally, if both the seed and the soil are sound, but the farmer is inexperienced, the efforts spent would be futile. Similarly, if the farmer is experienced and has decent seeds, but the earth is infertile, it would be a waste of effort. Perhaps The latter was the case with the soldier. Marriage proposal. It was during Hadrat Sahib's 9-month stay in Rawalpindi that he received a letter of a marriage proposal from a pious young lady from Mirpur, whom he had never met. Hadrat Sahib was in his mid-40s and happily married with 4 children, and therefore did not respond to the letter. However, during his lengthy stay, he received another detailed letter from her, imploring him to marry her. Who was this pious young lady? Mai Sahiba Gulhar, who lived from 1941 to 1993, was born near Mirpur and belonged to the same family as Hadrat Sahib. Mai Sahiba's family consisted of a brother and a sister. Her family was wealthy, and as often happens, wealth can lead to a life of sin. But in her case, she was God-fearing and pious from childhood. Mai Sahiba learnt to read the Holy Quran at home from a pious lady. Even though she never went to school or a madrasa, she had a great passion for knowledge that continued throughout her life. When she reached the age of marriage, proposals came from various families. She was entirely dedicated to God and did not want to marry a person who would force her to change her way of life. Hence, she was inspired to write a letter to Hadrat Sahib and expressed her predicament, and felt he was the only person who would support her pious mode of life. As pressure increased on her to accept a marriage proposal, Mai Sahiba wrote a heart-rending letter to Hadrat Sahib in which she stated that she only wanted to live as his wife and would not make any worldly demands from him. She pleaded with Hadrat Sahib to accept her proposal as, in her view, this was the only way she could continue her life of piety. She believed marriage to a worldly person would destroy all the hard work she had done thus far. Hadrat Sahib was touched by the letter and showed it to his father-in-law, Maulana Bakar Muhammad. After reading the letter carefully, he suggested to Hadrat Sahib that he should accept the proposal. Hadrat Sahib gave his consent and appointed his father-in-law as his representative. Walk and learn. Once, Munir Hussain came to visit Hadrat Sahib in Rawalpindi, but was advised to come the following day. The next day, as Hadrat Sahib met with Munir Hussain, a barber arrived and wanted to cut Hadrat Sahib's hair. Hadrat Sahib stroked his head and remarked, "Do I even look like a human?" Then he apologized to the barber and asked him to come another day. Hadrat Sahib then inquired from Munir Hussain, "Can you walk?" He replied, "Yes, of course." Hadrat Sahib asked him the same question 3 times. Munir Hussain was a healthy individual and couldn't understand why Hadrat Sahib asked the question. Hadrat Sahib, Yunis, the Sanghi on duty, and Munir Hussain set off on foot. When travelling, Hadrat Sahib would not look around and would cross the road without a care for the oncoming traffic. Munir Hussain, however, was petrified and took great care not to bump into any traffic. Hadrat Sahib walked quickly, and Munir Hussain struggled to keep up. Despite what seemed like an eternity, Hadrat Sahib kept going without a break. Munir Hussain now understood the question Hadrat Sahib posed at the beginning of the day. Finally, to Munir Hussain's relief, Hadrat Sahib turned a corner off the main road and went into an underdeveloped area. There was a simple building in which Hadrat Sahib entered after instructing Munir Hussain to go to the mosque. After half an hour, Hadrat Sahib came to the mosque and his face was so radiant that one could not look at him for long. He instructed Munir Hussain to pay his respects at the simple building, which sheltered a 9-yard-long grave. Hadrat Sahib's stay in Rawalpindi consisted of visiting Sufi shrines in the various parts of the city. Some of these shrines were unknown, like the one mentioned above. Once a Sanghi who accompanied Hadrat Sahib on a visit to the less-known shrine thought to himself, "Why does Hadrat Sahib spend so much time at these shrines?" Hadrat Sahib was meditating near the grave, and when he finished he remarked, "A saint does not always visit a shrine to receive the benefit. Sometimes he goes to impart a benefit to the deceased saint." End of seclusion. At the end of the 9-month stay, Hadrat Sahib remarked to a Sanghi that his duration in Rawalpindi was similar to that of a child in the mother's womb, an allusion to the fact that he went through some spiritual development and now it was time to move on. Hadrat Sahib went to the niche of the mosque and kissed it out of reverence before setting off on another journey with 3 Sanghis. Old Bed. After leaving Rawalpindi, Hadrat Sahib and the 3 Sanghis drove past his home in Jhelum and did not stop. The drive would have been a 2-hour and 15 minutes journey. Hadrat Sahib instructed the Sanghis to buy a cheap old bed for him. However, all the shops had new beds and nothing that fitted Hadrat Sahib's description. Then they found an old cheap bed in the store of a Pathan, who was surprised that anybody would want to purchase it. Hadrat Sahib liked the bed and used it throughout his stay. Following this, the travellers arrived at a small mosque in Lahore, and Hadrat Sahib stayed there for 41 days. Data Sahib. In Lahore, Hadrat Sahib's daily routine was to visit Data Sahib, one of the most famous saints in Pakistan. Venerated as the patron saint of Lahore, Data Sahib, Sheikh Saeed Ali al-Hujwiri, or Data Ganj Bakhsh, as he is referred to by Muslims of the Indian subcontinent, was a famous 11th century Ghaznavian Persian Sunni Muslim mystic. Data Sahib is a direct descendant of our Prophet, and his shrine is one of the most frequently visited in South Asia. When Hadrat Sahib would visit Data Sahib's shrine, he would remain there from sunrise until the afternoon prayer. He would sit near the head of the grave and recite the Holy Quran for many hours. One day the Imam of the mosque asked Sanghi Muhammad Naqshband about Hadrat Sahib's whereabouts, and he directed him to the place. The Imam met Hadrat Sahib, who inquired how he came to know of his location. The Imam replied that Muhammad Naqshband had informed him. Hadrat Sahib was furious and picked up his shoes and left the shrine. 2 Sanghis ran after him, and Hadrat Sahib angrily told Muhammad Naqshband to go back home. Fadal Karim advised Muhammad Naqshband to stay silent and keep walking behind Hadrat Sahib. A few moments had passed, and Hadrat Sahib again told Muhammad Naqshband to leave. Fadal Karim explained to Muhammad Naqshband that Hadrat Sahib was upset and he should quietly follow him until his anger subsides. Hadrat Sahib then told Fadal Karim to buy a cold drink for Muhammad Naqshband, who was devastated and did not understand the reason for Hadrat Sahib's displeasure. He felt like throwing himself into the river and drowning. He thought to himself that I had not done anything wrong. Meanwhile, Hadrat Sahib returned to his chamber in the small mosque. Sat at the shop beneath the mosque, Muhammad Naqshband felt so low that he even forgot to offer his evening prayers. For Sanghis, or indeed Sufis, it is extremely distressing to be the cause of anguish or sadness in a saint's heart. It takes profound strength of character to remain focused and unaffected after learning that one's spiritual guide is upset with them. Muhammad Naqshband was distressed by Hadrat Sahib's unhappiness. After the night prayer, Fadal Karim informed Muhammad Naqshband that Hadrat Sahib wanted to speak to him. Hadrat Sahib asked him, "How does it feel when 2 intimate friends are talking and a stranger interrupts?" Muhammad Naqshband realized his mistake, that it was his fault that the spiritual conversation between Data Sahib and Hadrat Sahib ended abruptly. Hadrat Sahib then comforted him with the following analogy. The blacksmith does not put faulty metal into the furnace, as it is of no benefit. He uses real pieces of metal that are melted and moulded into shape. The meaning was that Muhammad Naqshband was of suitable material and could be moulded into shape. Muhammad Naqshband understood the similitude and felt at ease. Hadrat Sahib then inquired, how many days did Khwaja Garib Nawaz spend here? Muhammad Naqshband replied, 40 days. Similarly, Hadrat Sahib left on the 41st day and did not go inside the shrine to bid farewell to Data Sahib. Muhammad Naqshband was surprised. Then Hadrat Sahib related a story of the saint who visited a shrine on horseback, and one day he came back without dismounting his horse. He said, "Today the saint buried in the shrine came and met me and did not let me dismount." Hadrat Sahib said, "Do not assume that that is the case with me." Hadrat Sahib meant that such miraculous events happen to saints. However, he did not view himself as a saint.